Amida Dharma Essays, This Precious Human Life, by Gansen John Welch Sensei. According to Shakyamuni Buddha, our human birth is very rare. There is a classic story about this rarity in the Pali Canon, the ancient text recording his teachings. The Buddha was speaking to a group of monks. He said, quote, "Monks, suppose that this great earth was totally covered with water, and a man were to toss a yoke with a single hole into the water. A wind from the west would push it east, a wind from the east would push it west, a wind from the north would push it south, a wind from the south would push it north. And suppose a blind sea turtle was there, it would come to the surface only once every 100 years. Now what do you suppose the chances would be that a blind turtle coming once to the surface every 100 years would stick his neck into the yoke with a single hole?" End quote. And the monks answered, quote, "It would be very unusual, sir, that a blind turtle coming to the surface once every 100 years would stick his neck into the yoke." End quote. And the Buddha replied, quote, "And just so, it is very, very rare that one attains the human state." End quote. That is the example the Buddha gave of how rare the chances are and how precious it is to be born as a human being. The great Tibetan Buddhist master Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche wrote, quote, "Ask yourself how many of the billions of the inhabitants of the planet have any idea of how rare it is to have been born as a human being. How many of those who understand the rarity of human birth ever think of even using that chance to practice the Dharma? How many of those who think of practice actually do practice? How many of those who start really continue? How many of those who practice continue and attain ultimate realization? Indeed, those who attain ultimate realization compared to those who do not are as few as the stars you can see at daybreak. As long as you fail to recognize the true value of human existence, you will just fritter your life away in futile activity and distraction. When life comes all too soon to its inevitable end, you will have not achieved anything worthwhile at all. But once you really see the unique opportunity that human life can bring, you will definitely direct all your energy into reaping its true worth." End quote. Master Shinran Shonin stated, quote, "It is rare to obtain human life, and difficult to encounter a Buddha in this world. Hard it is to attain the wisdom of faith. Once you have heard the Dharma, pursue it with diligence." End quote. Ignoring or suppressing the truth and fleeing from reality, we focus on the unimportant, peripheral, and non-essential problems of life in samsara. Our evil and negative karma has caused us to be born in this age of Dharma decline or Mappo, and the majority of humans waste most or all of their lives pursuing worthless, trivial, and ephemeral goals and activities. It is important to realize and remind ourselves that all human beings are faced with a struggle to live, survive, and thrive in samsara. Animals are in a similar predicament, but they do not possess the brains of humans, which potentially give humans an advantage over animals. The problem is that most human beings do not use their brains wisely to develop intelligence, common sense, wisdom, reason, ethics, morality, and other critically important attributes that are essential prerequisites to making optimal use of this precious human life. A house built on sand cannot stand, and a culture, society, country, or civilization based on lies cannot endure. The great Irish poet William Butler Yeats wrote, quote, "Things fall apart, the centre cannot hold, mere anarchy is loosed upon the world, the blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity." End quote. Sometimes, as the American poet Robert Frost wrote, we have to take the road not taken, or, as the American psychiatrist M. Scott Peck wrote, the road less traveled. If we never do, we may not be able to truly perceive reality and truth. As history all too frequently proves, humans prefer their personal, selfish, and subjective opinions, prejudices, preferences, likes and dislikes, to an accurate and objective examination and assessment of reality and truth. We can find inspiration, comfort, solace and reassurance in the life of Master Shinran Shonin, who was exiled together with his teacher Master Honen Shonin by the political leaders of Japan at that time. Quote, Japanese society during the 12th century suffered from political instability and social disintegration that resulted in the establishment of a feudal government under the leadership of the warrior class. Understandably, Honen's teaching found eager followers among the various levels of Japanese society of that time. The popularity of the faith in the Pure Land of Amida Buddha aroused jealousy from the established schools of Buddhism. This resulted in Honen, together with his immediate disciples, including Shinran, being banished from the capital in 1207 and sent into exile. In addition, some of Honen's disciples were beheaded. End quote. Encyclopedia Britannica. As we are confronted with seemingly insurmountable problems of life in samsara, we can turn to the life and teachings of Master Shinran Shonin for wisdom and courage in understanding and coping with our individual and collective difficulties. Freedom cries as liberty dies, and lies, intimidation, threats, demonization, coercion, violence, and martial law are unleashed on the ignorant, foolish, and helpless masses. Drowning in an ocean of lies and floundering in a flood of fears and tears, unenlightened sentient beings in samsara are incapable of saving themselves from further ceaseless suffering. In this age of Mapo or Dharma decline, self-power practices can no longer lead to enlightenment, the end of suffering, and endless rebirth in the realms of samsara. According to Buddhist teachings, the human birth is most fortunate and precious, as it is best suited for the study and practice of Dharma. However, there are still difficulties to overcome, as Dharma Master Chen Yen explains. Quote, the sutras or Buddhist scriptures tell us of 6 difficulties. The first and foremost is being born as a human being. Only the conditions in the human realm are suitable for cultivation. In the heaven realms it is hard to focus on learning the Dharma, since heaven is full of happiness and joy, and we lose ourselves in pleasure. If born in hell, we are consumed by suffering, and if we are born as an animal or hungry ghost, life is also difficult, with little chance of coming into contact with the Buddha's teachings. The second difficulty is for us to encounter the Dharma at all. There are approximately 8 billion people in this world, not all of whom are Buddhists. There are various religions that people can practice, and among those who know about Buddhism, only a small number of people actually take the Dharma seriously and want to learn more about it. So, if we really think about it, the chances of us learning Buddhism is quite small. The third difficulty in having 6 healthy sense organs. Now that we have the human body, we also need eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and brain. Without functioning ears, we won't be able to hear Dharma talks. Without a healthy brain, we won't be able to process and understand Buddhist teachings. It is because we have healthy sense organs that we're able to learn the Dharma. The fourth difficulty is being with the Sangha or Buddhist monastics. When we aspire to learn the Dharma, we want to be close to the Sangha so they can guide us, help us think in a wholesome way, give us the right perspective on life, and help us strengthen our faith in the Buddhist teachings. The fifth difficulty is developing true faith in the Dharma. In life, we all have a tendency to get caught up in pursuing a career and in seeking wealth or fame. In the course of doing so, we may harm others and form bad relations. The Buddha's teachings can help us develop wisdom, get rid of our afflictions, be altruistic, and understand the meaning and value of life, so we may walk the right path. Lastly, there is the difficulty of finding wholesome friends. We need good and upright people around us to encourage us to cultivate and better ourselves. They are an example, their good conduct, character, and temperament, teaching us about life's values. Therefore, when the opportunity arises to learn the Dharma, we should remember all the difficulties we've already overcome and really cherish it. It is important to seize our chance to learn the Dharma diligently. With the understanding of Dharma, we will learn to do good deeds and better ourselves. Then we can be reborn as humans, re-encounter the Dharma, continue our cultivation, and eventually liberate ourselves from samsara. End quote. This summary of the self-power path shows the great difficulties involved in fulfilling the essential prerequisites for attaining liberation. If we sincerely and honestly examine our past, present, and probable future thoughts, words, and deeds, we will be forced to acknowledge our faults, flaws, failings, and admit that we are incapable of meeting the very high standards required to attain enlightenment by self-power practices alone. The logical and inevitable conclusion is that this is impossible without Amida's primal vow, or the 18th vow, which states that, quote, if, when I attain Buddhahood, sentient beings of the 10 quarters who sincerely entrust themselves to me desire to be born in my land and say my name perhaps even 10 times, should not be born there, may I not attain the supreme enlightenment. End quote. It is essential that all sincere students read or listen to Josho's explanation and clarification of the exclusion or second sentence of the primal or 18th vow. Otherwise, they might misunderstand this crucial component of the 18th vow. Please carefully read pages 165 to 186 of Josho's book, Commentary on the Sutra on the Buddha of Infinite Life. The following passages or verses from Master Shinran Shonin reinforce this message with unsurpassed eloquence, wisdom, and compassion. Further detailed explanation and commentary can be found in Reverend Joshua Adrian Celia's books. The links below include both audio and PDF versions of his books. The link is included in the PDF attached in the description below. Pure Land Hymns on the Right, Semblance, and Last Dharma Ages by Gotoko Zenshin. Now, amid the 5 defilements in the last Dharma age, sentient beings are incapable of practice and realization. Hence, the teachings that Shakyamuni left behind have all passed into the Naga's palace. The Great Collection Sutra teaches that we are now in the 5th period of 500 years. Because people are resolute in conflict and dispute, the pure Dharma is concealed in dormancy. Ignorance and blind passions abound, pervading everywhere like innumerable particles of dust. Desire and hatred arising out of conflict and accord are like high peaks and mountain ridges. Without entrusting themselves to the Tathagata's compassionate vow, no sentient beings of these times, the last Dharma age, and the 5th 500-year period since Shakyamuni's passing, will have a chance of parting from birth and death. The aspiration for enlightenment through self-power taught in the path of sages is beyond our minds and words. We foolish beings ever sinking in transmigration, how could we awaken it? Under the guidance of Buddhas who appeared in this world 3 times the sands of the Ganges in number, we awakened the aspiration for supreme enlightenment. But our self-power failed, and we continued to transmigrate. It is a great torch in the long night of ignorance. Do not sorrow that your eyes of wisdom are dark. It is a ship on the vast ocean of birth and death. Do not grieve that your obstructions of karmic evil are heavy. The power of the vow is without limit. Thus, even our karmic evil, deep and heavy, is not oppressive. The Buddha's wisdom is without bounds. Thus, even those of distracted minds and self-indulgence are not abandoned. Among my disciples, who will give themselves to doing evil, wrong views, and self-indulgence will flourish. And in the last age they will destroy my teaching. Thus Shakyamuni foretells in the Lotus Face Sutra, sentient beings who slander the Nimbutsu fall into Vichi hell, and suffer great pain and affliction without respite. For 80,000 kalpas, thus it is taught. With great reverence and gratitude, we should think and say each and every day, Namo Amida Bu, Namo Amida Bu, Namo Amida Bu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha.